Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So nice to see all you young gentlemen on this bright and early morning. Are they mostly engineer students? Yes. Engineer students, okay. And our topic of discussion for today is
developing a spiritual connection.
Developing a spiritual connection?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, so you're all engineers, right? So what is the basis of a very strong building? Strong foundation. Yes, so that's where we begin. So if we want to have connecting relationships, where do you think we begin? All right. So let's say I have relationships with my children, I have relationships with my grandchildren, I have relationships with devotees at the temple, I have relationships with people online, I have relationships with my siblings. What's the common denominator in all of those relationships? Who's the common denominator in all those relationships? I am. So then I have a lot to do with the relationships I have. Does that make sense? So then my question would be, what is my relationship to my own self? If you don't have a strong connection and a relationship to your own self, how will you have strong and connecting relationships to others? Anybody have any idea? So how can we have a strong and connecting relationship with our own self? If we don't know who we are, who is it that's trying to connect and relate to other people? Right? Yes. So who am I? Who am I? You can give a book answer if you want. Who am I? Who are you? Tell me. Say again?
Conditioned soul.
A conditioned soul. Okay. Who are you even more real than that? Part and parcel of Krishna. So we're a part and parcel of Krishna with some conditionings and coverings on top, right? We can call those software programmings. Our conditionings are software programmings. We're programmed in certain ways. What are the different ways we're programmed? What are the kinds of things that program us when we're little? What programs us?
Our desires.
Our desires, okay.
Our upbringing.
Our upbringing. Who in our upbringing probably has a lot of influence on us?
Association.
Yeah, which association has a lot of influence on us when we're little? Parents, right. Anybody else?
Friends.
Friends. Anybody else? Teachers. Yeah. Any relatives that we have that are living close to us? And our past life has a little influence on us.
Nowadays, social media.
Social media, as you get a little older, has a lot of influence. And what about culture? Like you're brought up in India, so you have a certain culture, and Americans have a little bit of a different culture. So there's a All of that programs us, right? Now, Krishna gave us software programming. Another name for software program could be our conditioning. Another name for it could be our false ego, right? He gave us a false ego, software programming, for a reason. Why did Krishna give us false ego? Why did he give us that programming? Go
The
ahead.
sense of identification to this material.
Very good. That's a good answer. Yeah, because we don't know who we really are. We don't know who we really are, and we need some kind of a game piece in order to function in the game of life. You know, if you've ever played computer games, I know none of you have ever played computer games, but if you ever did, you have a character, right? Some kind of a character, because otherwise you can't play the game. You're just watching somebody else play the game, so you have to have a character. So we get this false ego identification as a character that we play in the game of life. There's nothing wrong with having a character because it does help us to operate and function and learn and grow. What's the problem with having a character and a false ego?
When we start identifying ourselves in that character, we are.
Exactly. And a lot of times we unconsciously identify with that because we don't know who we really are. And so we identify, I'm an engineering student, and I'm good in math, or I'm good in cricket, I'm a good cricket player. I am intelligent. And these different identifications, when we identify strongly with them, they help us to function. I'm smart, I can get good grades, okay, so that helps me to function. However, what does that do to my relationship with other people? When I think I'm this and you think you're this, who is it that's relating in our relationships? Our identifications. Our autopilot. Our autopilot. That's one autopilot is relating to another. One software programming is relating to another software programming. Now, that's okay in normal day-to-day functioning. I want to go to the store and buy something, or I want to sit in a class and hear the teacher and study. However, if we want to have a conversation and a real connection, we might want to go a little deeper. Otherwise, we could just be up here in our head, having conversations in our head, arguing about points of view. Da-da-da-da-da, I'm right and you're wrong. You're laughing, but it's true, right? Yeah. It's so interesting that when we get this ego identification, it's not really, it gives us a sense of security. At least it gives us a little sense of security. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm a devotee. I'm going to put my tilak on. We get up early. We're going to chant. I know a little bit what I'm going to do when I have identifications. It gives us a little structure. Nothing wrong with structure. Again, we want to look at, do we have a strong foundation? If our foundation is with the conditioning, that can take us only so far. And it doesn't necessarily take us to having deep, introspective relationships. So, what's it going to take for us to have a connecting relationship to ourselves? Well, where are we in this human form of life? Where are we? Where am I located?
The heart.
Where do you think we spend most of our time?
In the mind.
In our head. Right. Yep. Yeah, we spend a lot of time in our mind. And that helps us function in the external world. It doesn't necessarily give us a deep connection with our own self or a deep connection with other people. When we're in our head, we're usually conversing about ideas, conversing about theory, I'm right, you're wrong, and it may create a stimulating conversation. I don't know if it creates a connecting conversation. It depends. Now, if you both agree on the same point, it might feel like there's a connecting conversation. We connect on certain theory, on certain ideas. But is that theoretical connection, that connection on the theory, a deep, real connection? Now, why are we coming to Bhakti Yoga? What is it that we're looking for coming to Bhakti Yoga? What are we looking for? Please. Happiness. Okay. What else? Krishna Prem, love of Krishna. What else?
Revival of,
I'm sorry?
revival of connection with Krishna.
Revival of connection with Krishna.
Peace.
Peace.
Purifying ourselves to our original condition.
Purifying ourselves to our original condition. Those are all good answers.
Discovering ourselves.
I'm sorry?
Discovering ourselves. What true identity like.
Discovering. Yeah. So this is really our real purpose in life. Not to be an engineer helps us to have a career, helps us to have some financial stability, which is a little bit of a security, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, my identity is not just as an engineer. There's something much more to me than just being an engineer. And really discovering our own identity and our own inner value and our inner worth. It takes something, but we don't spend a lot of time thinking about it unless somebody starts talking about it. And then maybe we start thinking about it. Now, you gave all the answers of why we came to Krishna Bhakti. We want peace, we want happiness, we want to find revive our real identity and our real connection with Krishna. That's what we want to do. Now, we do spend time chanting, and depending on the quality of our chanting, that chanting may connect us with Krishna, and not necessarily so, because a lot of times we do things on autopilot, mechanically. Do you know that the mind can do two things at the same time? You can be chanting and completely thinking about what you're going to do during the day, right? How do we chant consciously? How is it that we chant consciously? Connecting with our chanting, connecting with Krishna. So what kind of things help you to connect with Krishna while you're chanting? Does anybody have any strategies? What kind of things help you to really connect while you're chanting? Anybody?
Hearing the name.
I'm sorry?
Hearing the name.
Hearing.
And prayers.
Prayers.
To focus on that, the name is not different.
To focus that the name is not different from Krishna. So, as a person, are you a visual person? Are you an auditory person? I mean, different people are different things.
Visual.
A lot of you are visuals people. Sometimes when we have pictures in front of us when we chant, that helps a lot. That helps me a lot. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a little bit of attention deficit. My mind runs really, really fast. And it can focus for maybe about, 20 seconds. So what I do is I'll focus on one picture for 9 mantras. That probably takes more than 20 seconds. Sometimes they say you just chant each mantra as a brand new mantra. Have you ever heard that?
Bridge and root.
Burjan Prabhu. I tried to do that. It doesn't work for me because it's the same as chanting all the mantras.
Very tough. It's very tough.
I'm sorry?
It's very tough to implement.
Yeah, it doesn't, it doesn't work for me. I understand the principle of it, but it's just like, okay, another mantra, another mantra, another mantra, okay, but it's just like all merged. So I chant, I use multiple things to help me to focus. I chant with my beads on my right hand, and I count 9 mantras with my fingers on my left hand. So I chant 1 mantra, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I start over again. So for 9 mantras, I focus on, I have a series of pictures. I have actually 4 series of pictures. This is how distracted I can get. You know, one of them is the Parampara and Prabhupada and a couple other. Then I have the 6 Goswamis. That's another series of 6. So if you know, 9 times 6 is 54. Times 2 is 108. So I focus on one picture for 9 mantras, and then I go focus on another picture for 9 mantras. And I go around, and then I do that twice, and then that's 1 round. That helps me to focus. Now, while I'm chanting the Maha Mantra, I'm also chanting things in my head, like Krishna, or Krishna Chaitanya, or Nityananda Ram, or Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Ram, or Krishna Balaram. Because, like I said, you can be chanting and thinking something different. So in my mind, I'm thinking of one name, and I'm chanting the mantra here, looking at different pictures, and then in between I'll say prayers, like I'll see one of the 6 Goswamis and I'll say a certain prayer. Oh, how beautiful those 2 syllables, what nectar is in those 2 syllables, Krishna. Well, I'm saying Krishna in the background. So your mind has a little flexibility because it really wants flexibility. However, you're always keeping it within a circle of containment that we're not going to think about what we're doing today. We're not going to look at the phone. In fact, I keep my phone turned off until I finish. And in that way, you can actually practice focusing. You may chant 9 mantras just looking at Prabhupada or your guru, whatever works for you. But this really helps me. And it gives my mind a little variety because, the mind is like excruciating just sitting here chanting. It's painful. So you give it a little flexibility, but it's all within the realm of Krishna consciousness, and you can't go outside of that realm. So these are different ways that we can help ourselves to connect. Now, we really are a soul, and we really do want to learn how to connect to Krishna. So we want to practice and we want to see what works. Now, I'm not saying you need to do what I do. I mean, I just designed that, and after a certain period of time, maybe my mind gets used to that pattern. So then I need to switch it up again because then your mind gets into the autopilot of that system, right? You just need to keep switching it up, whatever it takes to kind of stay present and stay real in the moment rather than going into the autopilot mode. It's not that I never go in the autopilot mode. Certainly I do, Then when you're in the autopilot mode, oh, okay, what am I doing here? I'm just in the autopilot mode. And then you bring yourself back. So it's a practice and it's an exercise. And that's one way we learn to connect to ourself as a soul, praying to Krishna. Oh, Krishna, help me to hear your name. Help me to focus, please. Sometimes people, if their mind is talking too much, they'll just write down what their mind says on a piece of paper and then put it to the side. Oh, I have this really good idea. Okay, write it down and then you let it go. Otherwise, you're thinking about that idea the whole time you're chanting. So different ways that we can connect to Krishna and his name through prayer, through meditation, through pictures. All of that helps us to connect and chant. Now, in that chanting, sometimes we can discover some things. we discover our real inner desire. What is it that I really want in life? What is it that I'm struggling with right now? You have a problem? You have to go?
No.
Okay.
Mic it just.
Oh, the mic fell. Thank you for noticing. So, we just really want to pay attention. Now, there's another way we can learn how to connect with ourselves, because, of course, when we connect with ourselves, then we know ourselves better, and then we can connect with others better. Did you ever hear the saying, know thyself? That's Shakespeare, right? Know thyself. To thine own self be true. He's actually talking about the soul. To thine own self be true. So if we're just true to our minds, but we're not true to our souls, we can survive in life, but we may not have deep connections. So knowing ourselves, we can get to know ourselves in how we relate to others. Others can help us to understand ourselves. So if we find ourselves wanting to fight a lot and prove that we're right, what do you think that means about ourselves? Not that I've never done that. We all do that sometimes. But what do you think that means if I have to prove that I'm right?
Satisfying you.
I'm sorry?
Satisfying for you.
It's satisfying for you, yes. Why is it satisfying for you? What is it? What could it mean that you have to prove that you're right?
We are identifying ourselves with our fourth ego.
Yes, which part?
Mind.
I'm sorry?
Mind.
What would the voice inside be saying that I have to prove myself right? Why do I have to prove myself right? Because maybe I feel...
Image conscious.
I'm sorry?
Image conscious.
Image conscious, that's part of it, but why am I concerned about my external energy? What does that mean about my connection with my real self? Maybe I'm feeling insecure.
Validations.
Insecure.
Need validations.
Invalidation. Now, a lot of us, most of us, I would even venture to say that all of us, have a part inside of us that feels insecure. Because we don't know who we really are. That is an insecure position. Really. To not know who you really are, that creates a lot of insecurity. And here we are, this little soul in this body. Why am I here? What's my purpose? Who really am I? And especially at this age here, this is a huge identity crisis now. You really got to find your own identity in the world now. You've left your parents. I mean, you haven't fully left them, but you're not living with your parents. Now you got to figure out, who am I in this world? So in our life, we go through many, many identity crises. And we think, okay, now I got my identity. Now I'm an engineer. I've graduated. Now I know who I am. Now I know what I'm supposed to do. Yes and no. And then you get married, and then no, now I'm a husband. And then you have kids. Now I'm a father. So you get these different identities, but then the identities break down because then your kids grow up and then they leave. Okay, now I'm a father, but not really, because now they're gone. So now what do I do? And then maybe you get older and you retire, so now I'm not my engineering career, so who am I, right? What do I do? And we're usually just trying to find something to do to distract our mind from the fact that we don't know who we really are. And that can be frustrating. But identity crises are really great times to really dig in deep. Who am I really? What's really important to me? Why do I want to be right? Why do I want to argue? Why do I want to do it this way? Just being really curious. Now, generally, in general, especially maybe in the male population, although I could have qualified for that in my youth, because we all have this underlining insecurity that we don't know who we really are. And inside, our soul and Krishna in our heart are telling us, yep, here you are in this world again. You kind of like missed something. Here we are again. So we feel a little shameful, a little guilty. Feels pretty insecure too. Now on top of that, because we don't like that feeling, then we put the producing, look how good I am, the strong thing on top of that. It's just a cover for the pain. What if we could actually address our pain and talk about our pain and think about it and be curious about it rather than judging us for our pain? Now, I'd say that the majority, probably 99.9% of the human population, is seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
We seek pleasure and we avoid pain, and we avoid pain at all costs. We distract ourselves, we avoid it. A lot of times what we do with pain is we throw it on others. We blame others, we shame others, we put others down. So the whole material world is just one person throwing their pain on another person, and then it's too much pain for me, I throw it on you, you throw it, and then we're just throwing our pain all around, and the pain's not dissipating. This is a place of misery, right? Samsara is simply perpetuating the misery. And we perpetuate the misery by trying to make things better. We try to make it better. I'm trying to make it better. I'm trying to improve it. But then there's consequences to that. Action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction. We're just trying to avoid the pain. We've got to make it better. Avoid the pain. Got to make it better. Okay, there's pain in that. Now I got to change this. And it distracts us from the real issue. The real issue is dealing with our own pain. That's the real issue. Now, I'll tell you a secret. You said we want Krishna Prem, right? We want love of Krishna, right? Well, if you want to know, love and pain are intimately connected. If you don't believe me, ask the gopis. Ask the Brijabasis. Love and pain are intimately connected. If you've ever had anybody in your life that you're really close to, and they leave this world, they pass away, it's very painful. And it's painful because there's love there. I mean, you might say, oh, it's because you're attached. But there's some kind of a love there for that person. So love and pain are intimately connected. So what happens when we push down the pain? What's that? We're wedding?
Love goes down.
Love goes down too. You're pushing down the love because they're connected. So we push down the pain, push down the love, and we're trying to develop love at the same time. Good luck on that one. It's a lot of self-sabotage. There's a lot of self-sabotage. So, how is it that we can start to learn how to address our own pain? Like, what is my pain? What are my insecurities? What are my fears? You know, I'm sure a lot of you have a fear of failure. Nobody wants to fail, right? You got to be successful, right? And even using the word failure, that's a scary word. I have made hundreds, probably thousands of mistakes in my life, right? I don't allow those mistakes to define me as a failure. Rather, those mistakes have taught me a lot of lessons. Prabhupada said that what we learn easily is easy to forget. And what we learn with difficulty is difficult to forget. It's one of my favorite quotes from Prabhupada. And a lot of times we say, oh, well, you should just learn from hearing, because if you don't, really, only fools learn by experience. There's that saying. So nobody wants to be a fool, so everybody is trying to pretend that they're learning from hearing, and they're usually not. So really, in reality, we really, really mostly learn from experience. We may hear something, and then we experience something, we're like, oh, that's what that means. Now I get it. We mostly learn from experience, and it's not a bad thing. Krishna gave us experiences to help us to learn and to grow. And those experiences can really help us. So how can we come to know ourself, to thine own self be true? We'd have to start introspecting. Now, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says something very profound. I don't know if you've ever heard this quote. When faults in others delude and misguide you, have patience. Find faults in yourself. No, have patience, introspect, find faults in yourself. No one can harm you unless you harm yourself. This is what I'm talking about. Our relationship with ourself is so important. We push down our pain, we hide our pain, we don't talk about our pain, we don't think about our pain. And then we're trying to develop love and loving relationships and connections on top of all that pain. That pain has a lot to do with who we are as a soul. What are our pains? What are our struggles? And if we don't deal with them now, there'll be another identity crisis that comes in our life, and then the pain will come up again. And then we can push it down again. I have another example. Sometimes we say, oh, just chant Hare Krishna and all your problems will be solved, right? Have you ever heard that? I think we need to change that mantra. I liken chanting to making ghee, all right? So when you make ghee, you turn the heat on, right? Turn the flame on. So the flame is like the mantra. It warms us up, it heats up the butter, right? Have any of you ever made ghee? You know the process of making ghee? A little aware of it? Okay. So you turn up the flame, heat up the butter. What comes up? What comes up when you heat up the butter? What comes up? What's that? I'm hearing some comments, but I don't think anybody's really sure of the, everybody's afraid they're going to make a mistake. It's okay, you can make a mistake. I'm not going to penalize you for that. What are your guesses? What comes up when you turn on the heat? I'm sorry?
Milk solids.
Milk solids.
Bubble. Vapors.
Vapors, bubbles, the milk solids. What do we call the milk solids when they come up? What are we trying to make? We're trying to make clarified butter, right? So what comes up? That's the word I'm looking for. The impurities come up, right? And first of all, there's kind of some milk solids, and there's some gray stuff, and at the very end, there's black stuff that comes up. You know that?
Yes.
Yeah. So when we chant, the impurities start to come up. They come out of the subtle area, and they come up so that we can see them. Because when you got butter, you don't see the impurities. It just looks like nice yellow, white butter. I don't see any impurities in there. It looks pretty nice, right? So when we chant, the impurities come up to our face. They come up out of our essence. So what do we do when the impurities come up? I'm sorry?
Straighten more.
Remove them.
Remove them.
What do we do when the impurities come up when we're chanting and we start seeing the impurities? What do we do with them usually?
Suppress them.
I'm sorry?
Suppress them.
We stir them back in. That's it. We suppress them. We stir them right back in there. And we're like, God, what's taking so long here? Now that was a laugh of truth. That's what we do. Because we don't want to see the impurities. We don't want to deal with the pain. We don't want to see that I have anything possibly wrong with me because I feel so insecure that I have things that are not pure. But what the heck are we here for anyway? Excuse me. We're here to become purified. We're here to do with this process. And then we do everything to avoid the process that we're in. We do the external processes, but then when it comes to the real work, oh no, I don't want to see that. No way, I don't want to see that. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to say I have any problems, insecurities, fears. Well, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm a man. We all have them. And when we talk about them and we deal with them and we're curious about them, rather than judgmental, we can learn a lot about ourselves. And we can learn about our programming, right? Now, if you have a software programming and you don't understand it, how functional is that software programming for you? If you have a cell phone and you don't know how to use it, I'm sorry?
Episode. HG
I don't know that language. I'll speak in simple language. If you don't know the programming, you're always on the default mode. You're always on you don't even know where the option buttons are. You don't even know how to turn it on, turn it off, how to brighten it, how to do, you don't know anything. That's pretty much how it is with us and our own selves. And when you don't know programming, you're running into blocks and walls and messes and all the time. That's why we have such messes with our relationships, because we don't know our programming. Why did I yell? What was wrong with, what was I yelling about? What was I so upset about? Well, I felt like he wasn't respecting me. Well, do I respect myself? Maybe not. Maybe I think I'm an idiot, you know? Seriously, we have these thoughts about ourselves. And then when somebody out there says it, oh my gosh, we put up our big defenses. We need to know a little bit about this machinery. Now, we talk about Krishna consciousness and controlling the mind. I like to use the word managing the mind. If you're going to manage a software programming, you need to know the programming. Hey, we understand our computers and our cell phones, but we don't understand this machinery that we're in 24/7. How does that work? Anyway, I just wanted to give you an introduction to the possibility that introspection and curiosity about my own self and, you know, why I have this conditioning, why I'm attached to this habit, the stories I tell myself, the beliefs that I have, you know, maybe my ADHD, my fanaticism, my perfectionism, whatever it is, maybe it's not who I really am, and maybe it's just not helping me anymore. Now, when we're really little, we do things automatically. Krishna gave us systems to protect ourselves. So if our parents were yelling and fighting, we might have just like withdrawn into our room or behind the sofa and just didn't say anything because I don't want to get yelled at, so I'm not going to say anything. So we might become a very reserved, unexpressed person. that was there to protect us when we're young. But if we carry that into our adulthood, it might prevent us from growing further. Now, I was the opposite. I was a very vocal person. I wanted people to listen to me, so I would talk and yell and wave my papers around. Well, when you do that to people, and I would prove people wrong, I would show I was right. When you do that all the time, I did it because I wanted people to listen to me, because I had a story that people didn't listen to me because of something that happened when I was young. But when you push people to listen to you, guess how they feel? They don't want to listen to you. And then you can say, see, it's true. People don't listen to me. So we want to become conscious of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and is it really helping? Is it really working? Is it really helping me to have relationships with other people? I produced a lot of results in my early Krishna consciousness. For 27 years, I produced a lot of results. And my relationships sucked. With my kids, with my parents, with my siblings. There was only 2 ways I knew how to talk. Either you tell me what to do and I do it, or I tell you what to do and you do it. Simple. What else do we have to talk about? There's service to do. Yes, no wonder my relationships were less than beneficial. So I want to give a little chance to ask some questions, and I wanted to show these 2 books in here. Take this side. That one. So I think last year I showed you my books on finding the gap and entering the gap. I think some of you might have got those books. Did some of you read those books? Some did. Maybe some didn't. I know you guys have enough books to read and you don't want to read books anymore. This book is a little different. This book is about how I became a devotee and how I was fanatical and how that impacted my parents and how they kidnapped me and had me brainwashed. Seriously. Seriously. And how that affected our relationship, and then how later on in life we reconciled. This is a story, and it's a true story. It's my story and my mom's story. And it's a pretty easy book to read, and there are lessons in it that can be learned and gleaned. But it's very easy to read. Some people finish it in 4 hours, or usually people tell me 3 days is pretty much the max. So that's a new book that's come out. This is a book that I wrote before. I don't know if any of you have seen this. This is about compassion, and this also has stories in it about my life. It has other stories from, around the world, which make a point. But this talks about how compassion, like having compassion for ourselves, and just being a little introspective and curious rather than judgmental, and how that being compassionate for ourselves helps us to learn how to have compassion for others. When I can confront and deal with my own anomalies, habits, conditions, and forgive myself and accept that I'm a jiva, I do make mistakes, I do become illusioned, I have a tendency to cheat, and my senses are imperfect, it just keeps us grounded in a reality. And I don't have to prove anything. I can just be myself and be secure in being myself, even in making mistakes. So I put a lot of mistakes in these books, and these are for sale. I'm giving a special discount rate for students. So online, this book is $500 and this is $400. Today, I'm giving a special discount rate just for students, 500 rupees, and you get the 2 books. That's just special for students. Now, I did want to also give you a little time. I know you have to kind of go.
Questions.
It's 7:45. Do we have a time for a few questions? Okay, please.
Mataji, thank you for your wonderful session. You mentioned that we when we see the impurities, we stir up them and we don't want to see them and suppress, sort of. So I'm not able to translate how do we translate this in our world so that we don't stir them up and really get them rid of.
So how do we translate clearing the impurities? Well, first of all, you want to acknowledge that they're there. If when you see them, you want to stir them back in and suppress them, then you're not acknowledging that they're there. You're not acknowledging their existence. And then,
Being ignorant.
so acknowledgement, oh my gosh. Now, when we acknowledge impurities, a lot of times what we do is we start to label ourselves. I am so blah, blah, blah. That's another identification. We don't want to identify ourselves with our impurities. We certainly have impurities, but the clarified butter is not impurities. It had some impurities in it. We have some impurities in us. So I have impurities. I have weaknesses. I have habits that maybe are not helpful sometimes. Being able to say that without cringing, oh my gosh, I have bad habits. I have habits that are self-sabotaging. Being able to say that, I have some habits that don't really help me. I wonder where they came from. I wonder why I'm attached to those habits. I wonder what I could do instead of that. Being curious and asking questions. And when you ask questions, answers come. From your mind, from Krishna in your heart. And you're intelligent, so answers can come. Now, whether you apply the answer or not, that's another point. So application, we need to apply. When we see something and we know, I'm self-sabotaging here. Wow, every time somebody gets close to me, I start to push them away. Why is that? Why do I push people away? Why do I put a wall between me and others? What am I afraid of? What were my experiences when I was young? Did I get hurt a lot in relationships? Well, no wonder I push people away. Do I want to continue to do that? Maybe not. How could I start trusting others when maybe I haven't had trusting relationships in the past? How do I start trusting? Well, I can trust Krishna. So that's one person I can trust. Do I trust Krishna? You just start asking questions. Why don't I trust Krishna? Do I trust myself? Why don't I trust myself? How can I develop my trust muscles? Like that. It's like one step at a time, one little step. But it comes from acknowledgement and curiosity rather than judgment and suppression. Those two things keep us in the material world. Judgment and suppression, acknowledgement and curiosity. Okay? Questions, thoughts, discussions? 1, 2. Go ahead.
Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble
Haribo.
obeisances.
Haribo.
Thank you for the lecture. You mentioned about introspection to connect with ourselves and Krishna. So, what is the method to introspect? Like we might go in some wrong direction while labeling something as introspection. So, how we can be careful about introspecting on different topics?
One way, an easy way to introspect is to take 10 minutes or something to just write in a journal in the morning or whenever you have time, morning or evening. And you just write a stream of consciousness. You just write whatever is coming into your mind. Just write it all down. Oh my gosh, they were so mean. I can't believe my teacher, what those questions were, whatever. You just write it down or just get it all out. And then you can look at it and then be curious about it because it's unfiltered thoughts. And then they're on the page rather than running around in your head, going around in circles, making you sick. It's on a page and you can look at it. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. And then you might notice that you write the same thing for 2 weeks. They're so mean, or they don't respect me. And they're like, wow, I keep saying that same thing. Then you can notice that, oh, there's There's some upset there inside of me around respect. You'll start being able to see things more clearly because they're outside of your head, and now they're on a piece of paper separate from you. And when you separate it from you, then you can look at it objectively. Does that make sense? That's one simple process. It works. It's called journaling. Simple. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. If you just do 10 minutes every day, it's a very simple exercise. You had a question? Yes. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, my question is, we many times we have heard that when mind, something comes as impurities through the mind, right? We are spiritual. We are, as a spiritual, we are pure. We are not impure. But the, as you said, the impurities that comes from mind. Prabhupada also said, from St. Louis, Prabhupada says, where is the question of mind? Whenever something comes into the mind, just ignore it and do it. Just ignore it and do your part, whatever you are doing. So, but at the same time, we are seeing that impurities are coming, and on a hand, we are saying that ignore it and try to cultivate what is the ideal. Try to cultivate.
Okay.
And second point is we have to identify our impurities, and we are to listen to us. Where is the bridge and how to
Okay.
go to the right path?
Okay. So, in dealing with our mind, let's look at Haridas Thakur. Okay? So Maya Devi came to Haridas Thakur. He was chanting. Did he ignore her? No. No, he didn't.
No.
What did he do?
He focused on the chanting.
Well, he acknowledged her. He said, I see you. I hear you. Interesting proposal. Right now, I'm doing this. This is what I'm focused on. You can stay and sit, and after I'm done, we'll talk about it. When you treat the mind like an enemy, it becomes an enemy. And it'll fight with you because you're fighting with it. He did not fight with Maya Devi. He did not say, you're crazy. I can't believe you're saying this. This is so ridiculous. Get out of here. She would have tried even harder. And he would have been distracted from it, and it would have upset his consciousness. He wouldn't have been able to focus nicely on what he was doing. It would have disturbed him. She would have disturbed him. He wasn't disturbed by her. Interesting proposal. You can say to your mind, that's interesting. Where does that come from? I liken the mind to a computer monitor. Your mind is not really the enemy. It's the monitor. And usually what it's playing is everything from your past experiences. It's just flashing, programming from your past experiences, and it's flashing it on the screen. And then you're mad at the mind, but it's just a monitor screen. Now, in that monitor screen, it can give you information. Wow, I keep flashing this same thing. Why do I keep flashing this same thought? That's interesting. Why do I keep repeating the same thought over and over again? You can get to know a little bit about your programming. When you see the same images being flashed, you can think, oh, that's interesting part of the programming. So then you can kind of dissect it and pull it apart a little bit. Now, ignoring, it's a quick fix. It can work temporarily. Sometimes you might need to do that. It doesn't necessarily work in the long run because you need to know how to manage your machinery. You need to know how to work the monitor. The monitor is only playing what's coming from the past experiences. Now, how are you going to purify from the past experiences if you just keep suppressing them and pushing them down and ignoring them and pushing them away? You're not going to be able to understand and process them. And they're going to keep coming up because you've stirred them back in. So be curious. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Wow, where'd that come from? Write it down. Take it outside of your head. Write it on a piece of paper in your journal. I'll think about that later. I'll talk about it later. Right now I'm doing something, but I'll write it down. And then you notice, what are the repetitive thoughts? I'm going to be a failure. Nobody's going to like me. Oh my gosh. Write them down. You'll start to see what drives you. Software programming is it drives the computer, right? It runs it. We have apps that are running in the background that we don't even know that they're running in the background. They're draining our energy. We might want to become aware of what those apps are. What do I keep telling myself that's draining my battery? Oh, you're so blah, blah, blah. And look at him. He's so much better. And you're so blah, 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 blah. You might want to look at those things that are repeated in your head and, is that really true? Is that who I really am? Why do I keep believing that? And if you believe lies about yourself, how are you going to ever get to the absolute truth? You can't stick truth on top of lies. You got to pull the lies apart. Does that make sense? Yeah. Please.
Mataji, sometimes journaling becomes a self-pity for us. Oh, I did this wrong. Oh, I'm so fallen. It is never encouraging how to journal in a better way. So it becomes encouraging also. It is mostly like a confession room. And
So what becomes like a confession room? Your mind? Or what? What are you saying exactly?
yeah, I'm saying like when I journal, I generally write down my
Thoughts?
shortcomings.
Okay.
And my bad things which comes to me, and I did this wrong and did this wrong. How to make it more better?
So you take one little thing at a time. Oh, I yelled at somebody. Okay, what was going on inside of me that I felt that I had to yell? Maybe I felt they weren't listening to me. I wonder how they felt after I yelled at them. Maybe I could apologize for the way I spoke to them. I don't necessarily have to apologize for the words I spoke because maybe the words were true, but maybe my tone of voice hurt them and triggered their pain. That's one way how we throw our pain on others. Maybe I could just say, I'm sorry. Boom. It's one little thing you can do to alleviate a mistake you made. Saying sorry. But you don't want to just say necessarily, sorry. You know, that's another, like another defense mechanism. But authentically and genuinely, like, I really don't have any right to speak to anybody like that, and I apologize for the way I spoke to you. And in your head, not necessarily for what I said, but for how I delivered that message. So, if it's hard for you to see all those things, you may be identifying with them a lot. You may be thinking, I am this, I am that, rather than I have this. And why do I have this? Emotions actually make a lot of sense. They really do, believe it or not. They come logically, they're designed when we're little. Somebody has to be aggressive, somebody has to protect their mother from their father. Someone has an alcoholic father and has to, never knows, what's going to happen. You start, your software programming is kicking in and developing. And so, and somebody, your parents, I'm just making all this up, but somebody may have shamed you a lot when you were little. You're stupid, you're never going to amount to anything, blah, 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 blah. So that's a program running in your head because it was reinforced over and over and over and over and over and over again, and you believed it and you gathered evidence to prove it, and now you live with that app running in the background. So you want to look at that. Where did that come from, and do I really want to keep believing that? And sure, I make mistakes, but it doesn't mean that I'm stupid. It could just mean that maybe what they were expecting of me was beyond my capability at that time. A lot of times we expect 2- and 3-year-olds to be adults, and when they're not, we call them naughty, and they're just being kids. But we call them naughty. How many of you were called naughty when I don't like that word. They'd say naughty, and I think they mean it kind of in a mischievous way. But kids are not mischievous. They're just having fun. Oh, I want to just pull this apart, and what's this made out of? And look at these flowers. Wow, this is so much fun. You made so much mess. You made so much work for me. Now I have to clean this all up, you blah, blah, blah. They're just having fun. But we call them naughty. And then that child starts to think, I'm naughty, I'm bad, I'm stupid, I'm shameful. So you want to start looking at what you believe about yourself, and is that really the truth? I did write about that a lot in the Finding the Gap and Entering the Gap. I have one set of that here. But I think you got some of this, some of you got these books.
3 sets.
Yeah, you want to, start looking at these books. They have a lot of information, and these are like the postgraduate books. But these books are kind of simple, and they show you that, hey man, I went through a lot in my life. I'm not a perfect, pure devotee. I'm a soul, jiva, in a human machine, working to purify my consciousness, working to become a closer and closer version to my soul self, working to be compassionate to myself and be compassionate to others. That's all, and you all have that same ability. We're no different. You have that same ability. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, feedback? Corrections. I could have made mistakes. I'm not perfect. Please. Haribo.
Mataji, as you said, like while chanting, looking at the deity's picture is helping me.
It helps me. It may distract somebody else.
But as I've heard, like two senses works together. If I am chanting, only I can do is hearing. If I see something, then it will be like the chanting or the seeing the things. So how can I focus because it is not helping me actually.
It's not helping you to look at pictures?
Yes.
Then don't do it. I'm not telling you to do it. It helps me. Don't do something that doesn't help you. If you're an auditory person, you may really be able to hear and relish the hearing, and visuals may distract you. But I'm a visual person. If I don't see a picture of Krishna in front of me and I close my eyes and I'm hearing, I'm asleep or my mind is just going in another direction. But if I see a picture, there's Krishna. Krishna's right in front of me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm talking to him, or I'm listening to him. I'm listening to him talk. That helps me. If it doesn't help you, don't do it by all means. Everybody's different. So you hear, you really like the auditory. So that works for you. Don't look at pictures then. Don't. Close your eyes. But if I close my eyes, I'm in la-la land. So having a picture in front of me, like there, Krishna is right there in front of you, by the way. He's right there. Pay attention. That helps me. So you want to do what helps you. And if there's more than one way to do it. And you have to be honest with yourself, what works and what doesn't work. I've been chanting for a while, and I know a lot of things that don't work. And what used to work, I used to pace, because I had so much energy. And pacing, I was doing something, so while I was doing something, I could somewhat listen, because my body felt like it was doing something. And I don't pace anymore, because it's now a distraction. So sitting and concentrating, so that your chanting may change as you age. So do what works, and if it doesn't work, do something different. Yeah, be practical. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that point up, because that's a valid and important point. You don't do it the way I do it because I'm saying that's the way I do it. Do what works for you. I just was sharing what works for me, and my mind is so crazy. I got to use this hand, inside, mouth, eyes. I got to do all of it. That's how distracted I get. Yeah. Okay, please, one more. Hello.
So you were talking about analyzing the software
Mm.
and our impurities.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point of life, I am able to understand that I have these many impurities. These are my impurities. But is it really possible for us to overcome all the impurities, because it feels frustrating at some point that we understand what it is, but it is like impurity of many lifetimes. So
Don't take it all on at once. Do one at a time. The one that's most interfering, maybe start with that, or the one that's the easiest to resolve, do that one first. Maybe the one that's the most interfering is the deepest one, and that might be the hardest one to get rid of. So just, and we don't necessarily fully get rid of them, but we can understand them. So deal with the one that maybe is the easiest to manage and work on that. And then take the next, and then take the next, and take the next, and take the next. I've been working deeply introspecting for 23 years now. Yeah, the first 27 years were all automated, fanatic, yes man, blind following. And then all of my suppressed emotions came up simultaneously. They don't go away when you suppress them. They come back. They don't come back now. They'll come back later. They'll come back when you have an identity crisis. They'll come back when you have a rough time in your life. Or they'll come back when you're on your deathbed and you're like,